Hey everyone, welcome back to Unsettling Stories. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a spine-chilling tale. Today, we're diving into the dark and eerie history of Fairview High. This school, which has been abandoned for decades, is rumored to be haunted by restless spirits. So, grab your blankets, turn off the lights, and get ready for the Haunted School Project. Fairview High was built in 1925, during a time when the town of Fairview was thriving. The school quickly became the heart of the community, educating generations of students. However, its history is marked by a series of tragic and mysterious events that have left it abandoned and shrouded in ghostly legends. The school stood as a symbol of hope and progress for the small town, but soon, dark clouds of misfortune began to loom over its once bright legacy. In 1932, a devastating fire broke out in the school's auditorium during a talent show. The event was meant to be a joyous occasion, showcasing the diverse talents of the students. The auditorium was packed with parents, teachers, and students, all eager to see the performances. However, midway through the show, a spark from an old, faulty stage light ignited the heavy velvet curtains. The flames spread rapidly, engulfing the stage and quickly reaching the audience. The panic that ensued was indescribable. People were trapped in the inferno, desperately trying to escape. Despite the heroic efforts of firefighters, many lives were lost that night. The charred remains of the auditorium served as a grim reminder of the tragedy. The school was closed for months, undergoing repairs and renovations. When it finally reopened, it was said that strange occurrences began to plague the building. Survivors and witnesses spoke of hearing cries for help and seeing ghostly figures in the burned-out remains of the auditorium. The tragedy left a permanent scar on the community, and stories of the fire's victims haunting the school began to circulate. The disappearance of Sarah Thompson. Fast forward to 1954, and the school was once again the center of a chilling mystery. Sarah Thompson, a popular and academically gifted student, vanished without a trace. Sarah was known for her intelligence and kindness, a bright star among her peers. She was last seen in the school's library, where she often stayed late to study. That evening, she had been working on a history project, surrounded by stacks of books and notes. Her friends and family grew worried when she didn't return home, and a search party was quickly organized. Extensive searches and investigations yielded no clues, and Sarah was never found. Her disappearance added to the school's eerie reputation, with many believing that her spirit haunts the library, searching for a way to be found. Over the years, numerous students reported seeing a young girl in a white dress wandering the library aisles, only for her to vanish when approached. Books would fall from the shelves without explanation, and the sound of faint, sorrowful sobbing could be heard late at night. The mystery of Sarah Thompson remains unsolved, her story becoming a chilling legend passed down through generations of students. The suicide of Mr. Jenkins. In 1978, the school's beloved janitor, Mr. Jenkins, was found hanged in the basement. Mr. Jenkins had worked at Fairview High for over 2 decades. He was a kind-hearted man, always willing to lend a hand and known for his friendly demeanor. His sudden death shocked everyone. His death was ruled a suicide, but many believe he was driven to it by a malevolent spirit that had taken hold of him. Students and staff reported seeing Mr. Jenkins' ghostly figure continuing his janitorial duties, his presence accompanied by cold spots and the feeling of being watched. Some even claimed to hear the faint sound of his keys jangling as he made his rounds. The basement, where his body was found, became a place of fear and unease. Those who ventured down there often experienced an overwhelming sense of dread, and strange occurrences became commonplace. Lights would flicker, objects would move on their own, and disembodied voices would whisper in the darkness. The tragic story of Mr. Jenkins added another layer of mystery to the haunted halls of Fairview High. The library. The library is said to be haunted by the ghost of Sarah Thompson. Students and staff have reported seeing a young girl in a white dress wandering the aisles. Books often fall from the shelves, and the sound of faint sobbing can be heard late at night. Some have even claimed to feel a cold hand touch their shoulder when they're alone in the library, only to turn around and find no one there. The library, once a place of learning and quiet study, has become a hotspot for paranormal activity. There are numerous accounts of encounters with Sarah's ghost. One former student, Emily, recalled staying late to finish a project. She felt an eerie chill and saw a book fall from the high shelf. As she bent down to pick it up, she saw a pair of white shoes and looked up to see a young girl in a white dress. Before she could say anything, the figure vanished. Another student, Mark, experienced the sensation of being watched while studying. He heard the faint sound of sobbing and saw a fleeting shadow out of the corner of his eye. These experiences have become so common that many students refuse to stay in the library after dark. The auditorium. The auditorium, where the tragic fire claimed several lives, is another area of intense paranormal activity. Witnesses have seen shadowy figures on the stage and heard eerie music playing when the room is empty. Some say the spirits of those who died in the fire are still trying to finish their performances. During school events, it was common for people to feel sudden drops in temperature and see fleeting glimpses of ghostly faces in the audience. One former drama teacher, Mrs. Roberts, shared her experience of rehearsing alone in the auditorium. She heard the unmistakable sound of a piano playing, even though there was no one else in the room. The music was hauntingly beautiful but filled her with an overwhelming sense of sadness. Another teacher, Mr. Adams, reported seeing shadowy figures moving across the stage during a late-night rehearsal. The figures seemed to be engaged in a silent performance, their movements graceful yet airy. These ghostly sightings have become a part of the school's lore, adding to the auditorium's haunted reputation. The basement. The basement, where Mr. Jenkins took his life, is perhaps the most terrifying part of the school. Cold spots, disembodied voices, and the feeling of being watched are common experiences. Some have even reported seeing the ghost of Mr. Jenkins himself, still carrying out his janitorial duties. The basement is a place of overwhelming dread, and those who dare to enter often leave with a sense of unease that lingers for days. One former student, Lisa, shared her experience of venturing into the basement on a dare. She and her friends felt an immediate drop in temperature as they descended the stairs. The air grew thick, and they heard faint whispers echoing around them. Suddenly, they saw a faint, ghostly figure of a man holding a set of keys. Terrified, they ran back up the stairs, and to this day, Lisa refuses to go near the basement. Another former staff member, Mr. Collins, recounted his encounter with Mr. Jenkins' spirit. While doing some maintenance work, he felt the cold breeze and heard the sound of keys jangling. He turned around to see the ghostly figure of Mr. Jenkins standing at the end of the hallway, staring at him with sad eyes. Mr. Collins quickly left and never returned to the basement. Investigating the paranormal. Setting up. Armed with cameras, voice recorders, and EMF detectors, we set out to capture evidence of the paranormal. Our first stop was the library, where Sarah Thompson's ghost is said to roam. As we entered, the temperature noticeably dropped, and an eerie silence filled the air. We set up our equipment and began asking questions, hoping for a response. The library, with its dark corners and rows of old books, was the perfect setting for a paranormal investigation. We started by placing our cameras in strategic locations around the library, focusing on areas where Sarah had been sighted. Our EMF detectors were set up to monitor any fluctuations in electromagnetic fields, which are often associated with paranormal activity. We also placed voice recorders in various spots to capture any potential EVPs, electronic voice phenomena. The atmosphere was tense, and we couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The library. As we conducted our investigation in the library, we felt an overwhelming sense of sadness. Moments later, a book fell from the shelf behind us. Upon reviewing our recordings, we heard a faint voice saying, "Help me." Was this Sarah reaching out from beyond? We couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. We continued asking questions, trying to make contact with Sarah. Our EMF detectors started to spike, indicating a presence nearby. We asked Sarah if she was with us, and moments later, another book fell from the shelf. We felt the cold breeze sweep through the room, and our voice recorders captured a faint, sorrowful whisper. Reviewing the footage later, we saw a fleeting shadow move across the room, disappearing into the darkness. It was clear that Sarah's spirit was still present in the library, her restless soul seeking solace. The auditorium. Next, we moved to the auditorium. The atmosphere was heavy, and our EMF detector spiked several times. While filming, we captured a shadowy figure moving across the stage. The eerie music we had heard about played faintly in the background, sending chills down our spines. It felt as if we were intruding on a spectral performance, the spirits still tied to their final moments. The sense of tragedy was palpable, and we couldn't help but feel a deep sadness for the lives lost in the fire. We set up our equipment around the auditorium, focusing on the stage and the seats where ghostly faces had been seen. Our EMF detectors continued to spike, and we captured several EVPs, including faint music and indistinct voices. We asked the spirits to show themselves. To our astonishment, we saw a shadowy figure move across the stage. The figure seemed to be performing, its movements graceful and haunting. Reviewing the footage later, we saw several ghostly faces in the audience, their expressions filled with sadness and longing. The basement. Our final destination was the basement. The air was thick with dread as we descended the stairs. We set up our equipment and began our investigation. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the room, and we heard a whisper, "Get out." We captured the voice on our recorder, along with an image of a faint apparition resembling Mr. Jenkins. The basement was truly a place of darkness, and we felt an urgent need to leave. We set up our cameras and EMF detectors around the basement, focusing on the area where Mr. Jenkins was found. The cold spots were more intense here, and we could feel the oppressive atmosphere weighing down on us. We asked Mr. Jenkins if he was present, and moments later, our EMF detectors spiked. We heard the faint sound of keys jangling, followed by a whisper that sent chills down our spines, "Get out." Reviewing the footage later, we saw a faint, ghostly figure resembling Mr. Jenkins, his expression one of sorrow and torment. Conclusion. Our investigation of Fairview High left us with more questions than answers. The evidence we gathered suggests that the spirits of those who suffered tragic fates still linger within these walls. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the Haunted School project reveals the chilling reality that sometimes, the past never truly dies. The stories of Sarah Thompson, the fire victims, and Mr. Jenkins are woven into the very fabric of the school, their spirits unable to find peace. Thank you for joining us on this eerie journey. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on more unsettling tales. Until next time, stay curious and stay haunted.